Diversity. We've been following the themes and the titles of the Centers for Spiritual Living, so essentially the over 500 centers that are around the world are perhaps following the same theme. And the first question, I of course always have questions, right? Is how much diversity do you have in your life on a daily basis? Ponder that for a moment. If you were to give me a percentage, how much percentage of your life would be diverse each day? 50. We run on habit, don't we? And of course, we're creatures of habit. There's a lot of reason for that. Obviously, when there's something new, it requires more awareness, more attention. Have you ever noticed that maybe in a day where things were not what you expected, that it might take more energy out of you? Yeah, so sometimes we settle into a very comfortable place, which is not necessarily where growth is. So you're comfortably in your routine, and then tell me what happens. Life happens, yes, and that's change. Life happens. Yeah, I've had a lot of diversity in my life lately. On March 1st, I was told that by my boss's boss that I, along with 12 other of my colleagues from the California State University Chancellor's Office, are being reassigned to our current jobs down in Long Beach starting September 3rd. Oh. Now, there's a whole lot of drama in that. But let me just skip that part and tell you that I'm not going anywhere. But change is in the air. Just in case that wasn't enough, 12 days later, my partner Sue, who many of you know, slipped in the garage and broke her femur. So she's been laid up with crutches and a wheelchair, no work for a minimum of 6 weeks. And so guess who's making dinner every night? Now, for some of you, that may be, well, one of us always makes dinner every night. What's the big deal? But you see, you have to understand my relationship, in that in our relationship, we take turns. So now the favorite joke is, well, it's your night for dinner. So caregiving in a whole new way, which is delightful in many forms when I'm in the present moment of being able to serve. I love that. Being able to give love. And then our stove decided to go out. So PG&E red tagged it, which means they capped the gas. And of course, we went and bought a new one, and we're waiting for 6 weeks for it to be delivered and installed. So it's now barbecuing in the rain, using the toaster oven or the microwave to create dinner every night. We've done that a few times, and now that she can get around a little bit, going out to dinner a little bit more. So I got to tell you, I'm living a very diverse life right now compared to the comfortable space that I'd been living in the month before. So are you going to ask, how am I doing with diversity? How are you doing? I'm doing my spiritual practice. And I am very serious and very grateful that I have a spiritual practice and a faith. That in handling these situations, if you haven't done your spiritual practice, it's a little hard to get into that space when it's wah, right? So being able to center myself, and for those of you who were at Nancy Gimbel's celebration of life, I have been using that mantra, I am divinely guided and supported in all of this. And I can stand in the middle of that stream with the river just flowing. If you've been to 1 mile, it's pretty powerful. Or I can just get in my rowboat, inner tube, and ride the energy of life. So with my spiritual practice in play, I feel I'm handling the diversity with grace, Seriously. With reminders to live in the present moment. Because that's the best that I can do. Gratitude for the freshness opens up to, oh, there's a whole different way that life could be lived in a moment. Compassion for myself and for Sue. And most importantly, again, remembering that this is all divine. There have been so many things in life that I have looked back and said, I resisted it, I didn't like it, and it was the best thing that could have happened. And so this job thing, universe, show me the way. Yes? Yes. This fixing dinner every night, you know, okay, we're going to look at cookbooks and do new things because we don't have a stove and an oven, right?
Slow cooker.
Yeah, actually, that's on the menu for today. Thank you very much. It is. Slow cooker, it's happening. Yeah. Yeah. So the topic of diversity is naturally, couldn't come at a better time for me. Now, diversity, of course, also means diversity. When we speak of it today in society, we're talking about being open to the diversity of, for instance, America, the United States. We're talking about worldly diversity and how well we accept and are open to all the changes constantly going on, to understanding that there are different ways of life. And, you know, I start out thinking about diversity saying, how would life be if there was only one color, one food, one body size or style, one flower?
Boring.
Boring. Drab. Variety is the spice of life. It's the flavor. It is what life is. It's the essence of life. So would you say there's divine intelligence in the diversity that we are?
Yes.
A divine intelligence, a divine expression that exists throughout the world? And I know some feel that, you know, based on, and as I speak a little bit further, you know, diversity might feel contradictory to oneness for some, if you don't understand the spiritual principle behind oneness. That diversity may bring up rather, I want to notice the differences and separate and look at the otherness. For some, diversity causes the question, how can we be one? I see you, your body, my body, it's separate, right? Well, let's look at that. I like to use my body as an example of oneness. My body is made up is my body made up of all the same kind of cells? No. Heart cells, brain cells, skin cells, lung cells. And when the body is expressing its most healthy expression, all those cells are working in perfect harmony for one body. And so it is with humanity, if we chose to look at it that way. We don't want, per se, sameness. We want that diversity of life. We want that expression. We want to honor it, respect it, and know that when we can work in perfect harmony together, it is divine. Well, it's divine anyway that it is, but that the way we can work, I don't care whether it's the United States, around the world, whatever the case may be, until we understand that we are on one earth, there is one mind, one life, and if we understand that principle and come from that first cause, that first level of understanding that we are one, we can be very powerful in understanding and aligning with that truth. Now, just as a contrast, let's say, for example, that the heart cells decided that all the cells need to be like them. How well is that going to go? All you do is see one big heart up here. Funny picture. And when you really think about diversity, what about ecologically? People choose to live in the mountains, next to the ocean, in the valley, in the desert. Biologically, all kinds of animals with different kinds of expressions, different plants. I mean, nature expresses itself beautifully in the diversity that it is. But it is one nature. And how boring to eat only one kind of food. I mean, I know the Americans make more out of that than maybe anybody else, but the diversity of food available year-round these days versus when I was a kid amazes me, right? You can get berries all year round. Wow. Delightful. So variety is that spice of life and gives it all its flavors. Diversity is what makes life what it is. The oneness from which all things are created produces an unlimited variety of expression. Each person is a unique divine expression emanating from the one Creator.
Amen.
Yeah. And if we could just honor that each time we look at each other face to face, that essence of seeing people like that is palpable. Whether you're in a restaurant or whether you're doing your shopping, how are you present with each individual, recognizing that oneness? In the book, What Religious Science Teaches by Dr. Ernest Holmes, he says, behind all is unity. Through all is diversity. Saturating all is divinity. Very beautiful, isn't it? So, how is the diversity going in our society? Is it an issue? And yet we know that diversity is our truth. And it's not diversity itself that is the issue. Because again, you can see that demonstrated in life. What's the issue is the story we tell ourselves about diversity. So what do you tell yourself about diversity?
Diversity is sustainability.
Sustainability.
At all levels.
Excellent.
All creation.
You are intuitive because I have that written down somewhere. Beautiful. Yes, it's a truth. What else? What are you aware of when you are confronted with any kind of diversity? How about when somebody wants to do something entirely different than you?
Compassion.
Say that again?
Compassion.
Compassion. And, you know, a lot of times if we fear and don't have the skill to know how to work with the relationship, to know that we can work together, that there is an essence, that there is a, unlimited possibilities here. But sometimes we fear that diversity, and we don't even necessarily become aware of that. When I went to the Landmark Forum, they talked about our brain is constantly making up meaning out of what is. In other words, what is just what is. But we are the ones who pick up the arrows when something happens and stabs ourselves with a story that we create around what is. And when we learn our truth or know our truth, then our story changes. What we tell ourselves about knowing the truth about diversity, when we can see that oneness, it can reflect back to us in a whole different way. And at the Landmark Forum, there were people who, after this 3-day intense weekend, basically said, people are responding differently to me. And what are we about change? Yeah, our change causes the change in the world. But that means we must first become aware of our thoughts. Now, in science of mind, we know there is only one mind. That's how we're able to communicate with each other. And in this one mind, I don't like to say there's two parts, because then people start thinking division. I like to say there's two characteristics of mind. There is the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And so many of us think in our conscious mind that we're not discriminatory and that we welcome diversity. However, we all have a subconscious mind, and in that subconscious mind, many, many, many years ago, were seeds of thought that took root. But we may not even know that we have an unconscious bias that exists in this subconscious mind. Meaning, you may not be aware of this and what causes you to see separateness. And we all do it. Again, this is race consciousness or in our society, that as we were raised, there were things that we were told that basically is separation. Now, I'm going to give you a real solid example. So I was at CSU campus at a meeting of about 20 people. And we were talking about this software product. Part of my responsibility is to introduce the campuses to this software that creates alternative formats of documents. Now, what do I mean by that? Faculty create a syllabus which tells students, you know, here's when your tests are, here's when your assignments are due, this is what this class is about. And they usually do it in Microsoft Word. And they post it up into a system that's called the Learning Management System. Now, this gives students access to the syllabus 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's great for all of those who have no problem reading. However, if you're blind or have a reading disability like dyslexia, this document might not be so helpful to you. And you can get help, first of all, if you're aware you have a disability. Second of all, if you're willing to go to the Department of Disabled Student Services and declare that. Third of all, that then usually not well-resourced center needs to convert all of your course materials for all the courses you take into a format that works better for you. Now, can you see where this puts people at a disadvantage? Okay. This software product takes each of the documents in the learning management system and converts it to multiple formats instantaneously. Meaning that the Word document could be converted into an audio file, and the student can download it into their smartphone and listen to the materials. If you're blind, there is now an e-braille device where it will convert that Word document into e-braille, where the student can sit there and feel the braille as it pops up and down so that they can read the document. Groundbreaking stuff. Who would not want to do it? Did I say that was change? So in this meeting at the university, there's a student with a disability that gets really excited about this software, talks about the impact it's making with her being able to immediately have access without having to go to another department, get all these other materials, be delayed in getting the information. And there was a faculty member who was resisting the change because it does cause a faculty to do a little bit of work to become aware and to make some adjustments. And this faculty member was a leader in a position of power, and she says something to the effect of, the student says something like, oh, this software is so great, I can conveniently listen to the documents that have been put online. And the faculty member piped up and said, well, in my class, you can't just conveniently listen to the materials. You'll need to read and study the materials that I have in my course, or you won't pass. Now, does anybody recognize the unconscious bias in that statement? Okay, seems pretty obvious, but I have to tell you it wasn't obvious to her. And many of us were in shock looking at each other like, okay, who wants to tell this faculty member, wow. People learn in a variety of ways. It has nothing to do with intellect. It has to do with how we receive information. And And there are diverse ways of things that can be taught and a diverse way that people learn. Do you know that dyslexia affects about 1/5 of the population? And there are a lot of students who don't even know they have dyslexia. They just know they struggle reading and studying. That should not devalue how they learn. Now, this is an example of unconscious bias. Of course, I've created the story, so yes, you get that. But we all live with this unconscious bias. And again, that means coming back to being aware. And really, as we continue to move forward, you know, once upon a time, it was not that employers didn't necessarily write that they would not discriminate based on race, color, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, yada, yada, yada. I mean, at some point, yes. that sentence will go on for a long time because we could all list those different diverse things about ourselves. So, how are you going to leverage your spiritual practice to become aware of your unconscious bias? And find ways to include people in ways that maybe you've never included them before. You know, again, you could, I know this isn't ideal for everybody, just go sit at the mall and people watch. And then watch yourself think. Yes, a lot of judgment. A lot of judgment. And, you know, this is the thing about when you do meditation enough and you start being able to realize and watch your thinking, you'll realize how much your mind judges. Now, you can judge that you judge. I shouldn't be doing that. That's not a good thing to do. That's really helpful, isn't it? You know, you're looking at a mirror, which means, you know, I noticed that I judge. Now I'm judging that I'm judged. Now, how am you ever going to get out of this circle? Moving yourself back to compassion. Moving yourself back to the truth. Curiosity. Yeah, the curiosity rather than like, I already know the answer. I've already walked a mile in somebody else's moccasins, right? So if you know that diversity is the one true thing that life has in common, then how will you choose it each day and celebrate it? That will be a spiritual practice. So now I'm going to challenge all of us at a community. If you look around at our community, how diverse are we? I think that's a juxtaposition. Very diverse, because I just told you we're all diverse. And yet, if I'm talking about how we look at communities, we're not greatly diverse, because many of you can remember I asked, I don't know, 9 months ago for people who were 40 years or younger to please stand, and there were only a handful. We've got some work to do. What's keeping us from connecting and diversifying our community? And I really would like you to take that question home and then share it with me. You know, email me, talk to me, call me. I really want to know the answer to that question because we're a leader. We need to find ways to be more inclusive. In the meantime, I'm very excited to announce today that we have a new teen leader. And as many of you know, we've had teens. Augie, our AV tech back there, has been to the teen camp. And we have a new leader, which is John Boyle's daughter, Mallory Boyle. Yay! And I have to tell you, you know, we've been searching and wanted somebody who had science of mind background because while there are a lot of people who want to work with teens, you know, the science of mind philosophy, well, she was a cosmic kid. When she was this small, I remember her kids with my kids. She's a little bit younger. And she's been in another spiritual organization's teen group that was dynamic and exciting, and it happened to fold. And she's excited to lead our teens. And I can't, thank you. Answer to prayer. And I'm saying that because, are we going in the right direction? Yes. If we're going to diversify, we can diversify first in age. And doing that means starting with the teens. And I want to recognize Reverend Lisa in the room. I think she's with the kids. She's out in the garden there weeding and, yeah, digging in the dirt. Yeah, getting grounded. And she's been leading our youth and family events, and, one a month. Again, the cinema is also a part of that. And she attended a special event for campfire families at the Boys and Girls Club, and we had a booth, and we posted our family activities there and working to connect with more families who, we know after being moved from paradise abruptly, how do you reconnect? So we're trying to find ways to do that. We're sponsoring one of the summer concerts in downtown Chico. So, yeah. And that's July 12th. So, we'll put that in the e-blast, so you can put that in your calendar. And we're going to be a part of this Chico community event. And like last year, we're going to bring our bubbles. Because for some reason, bubbles are sort of magical for kids, and the kids come around, and then we get to talk to the parents, right? It's fun. We are also going to be at the Healing Arts Festival next Sunday at the Elks Lodge. And I want to thank Rosemary Quinn, who was up here earlier, for being willing to host our booth there. We'll be sharing flyers about Rumi and our holistic health, holistic services that we're offering to those affected by the campfire every other Saturday. And I'd like to also ask you to join the Chico Area Interfaith Council. On a weekly basis, on Thursday evenings, I know that that's usually the choir practice night, from 6 to 7 at the Diamond Hotel, there's going to be an interfaith devotion on a weekly basis, a multi-faith gathering with poems, prayers, and songs to promote unity and healing, led by the president of the Chico Area Interfaith Council, who is Christina Carter from the Baha'i Faith. Yes. So this is a wonderful opportunity for community to connect with faith community. So I hope some of you can make that. And we're doing other ways to reach out and to engage with the larger Chico community. And I'm interested in continuing to have this discussion about more diversity in our community. Because we need to put our spirituality into action. It's one thing to know spiritual principle. It's another thing to actually put it into action. And we need to be living it, walking our talk. We need to be living in the world, shining our lights, and knowing the truth that we are indeed one life. And that's where I had, because diversity sustains us. So life is an infinite creative power, always creating new versions of itself in an infinite number of forms, styles, and expressions. There's diversity in the beautiful rainbows, flowers, trees, grasses, colors. Diversity makes things richer. So, from Dr. Ernest Holmes, this is my conclusion, taken from the Science of Mind textbook. From the one comes many. All come from the one, and all live in and by the one. From this unity comes multiplicity, but multiplicity does not contradict unity. It is like the soil. We grow many plants from one soil, but the unity of the soil is never disturbed. So the one mind working through the creative medium of the universe produces many things. The idea of a oneness of God is not just a philosophy of absorption. We do not become absorbed in the universal self and lose our individuality. Quite the opposite. We find ourselves not absorbed, but immersed in a universality. Each on being a unit, an individual, a different manifestation of that which itself is one, undividable, indivisible, and whole. And so it is.